Men, and as usual, I use the term loosely. Little update on the 69 chopper I'm building. Built this battery box yesterday. This video is not really going to be about building a battery box. It's going to be about a couple of techniques I used in the construction of this battery box that y'all might find helpful. Just a couple little tricks maybe. Just FYI, this block of wood is the same size as the battery I'm using. And, I used that to, make sure everything was going to fit correctly. It's going to be retained just with this bungee cord. This screw on the bottom, I'm probably going to turn the threads off of this screw so that this will be smooth and won't chew into the bungee cord. Obviously, the screws that mount it have to be countersunk so they won't rub into the back of the battery. The metal isn't thick enough to contain the countersink depth of the screw, so there's a doubler welded on the back, just welded with one rosette weld in the middle to hold it in place. Just FYI, I got to try out the new Miller Dynasty 210. Man, this thing welds nice. I don't know if you could get an idea of the bead. Let me try to get a close-up in here for you. But man, that welder lays down some nice beads. Really happy with this thing. It welds like a dream. Makes welding a lot more fun again. Anyway, that's the battery box. We're going to move the camera around, hit some other things in the shop, and I'll show you a couple of tricks. Maybe you'll find them useful, maybe you won't. Anyway, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, let's call this tips and trick number one over here. Let's say you got a piece of material and you want to cut some off of it. Well, first off, you can always cut your material off, stand it up and clamp it down like this. I don't like doing that because the saw has a tendency sometimes to wander and you don't get a straight cut. So to get a straight cut, I like to leave my material laying flat whenever possible. But anyway, you want to lay your material flat. You don't have enough material, so when you go to crank it down over here, you're not getting a good bite on it. Get anything. I happen to have some machinist fixtures because I do have a mill and a lathe. But what you got to do is you got to block off the other side of this rotating clamp at the right height. Boom. It'll lock your material down just fine. You lower your saw over it. You'll cut a perfectly straight line on that. That'll hold it in place just fine. You don't have to use, obviously, you don't obviously have to use things like this. A piece of pipe, a block of wood, a chunk of scrap, a piece of angle iron, whatever you got laying around. Anything that'll keep this clamp parallel with the fixed fence, that's all you need. Anyway, I'll call that tip number one. I like to use it. I use it all the time. Used it several times when I was making the battery box. Okay, let's call this tips and tricks number two. You got a piece of material and you want to cut it off at a goofy angle. Even, for example, in this case, if I did move the fixed fence and set it at the angle I wanted, there's not enough material here left to catch and hold it, so you need some other way of clamping this thing down. This is what I do. I have a set of mill clamps. I make a rig up like this, and as it so happens on this bandsaw, I could put this on here and it will actually set on the jack screw for the clamp so it won't fall down. Then all you do is you take one of your clamps, set it up on there, run your nut down, run your nut down, tighten it up, lower your saw, leave it loose until you got your angle where you want it. Just line it up under the bandsaw blade, tighten your clamping arrangement up, and boom. This will hold This will hold that piece of material in place. I have found usually that I only need one of these. I don't know, maybe sometimes you need two. Once again, if you don't have a set of lathe or mill clamps, you know, anything, you know, the big C vice grip kind of things, some big C clamps, whatever you need. I've actually, on this particular bandsaw, I've actually drilled some extra holes in places where I've needed them in the past, and I've actually bolted material down, you know, just through these holes over here. So any way you can figure out to clamp this thing flat in the bed of the bandsaw, and you could cut any angle you want without having to monkey around with the fences. I find this works very good. Once again, I used this several times when I was making that battery box yesterday. Okay, tips and trick number 3. Go over to your hydraulic press, of which I have one right here, as it would happen. Get a pair of V-blocks. Your V-blocks probably are not going to like this too well, but it works. You want to hit a little lube on there because you're going to bend a piece of metal into the V, and it needs to be drawn in there, and it ain't going to want to go. You're going to make it go. Take your piece of metal. This happens to be 0.115 thick. Use a piece of steel rod. This just happens to be a piece of hot roll I had laying around. I think it's 5/16. You're going to want to lay on top of it something to back it up because it's going to want to flex. It's not stout enough. And then all you got to do is crank your press down. And you want to keep it all lined up, of course, as close to center line as you can. And if you're really good with the mathematics and such, and you know what the diameter of your rod is, you could find a bend allowance table that'll tell you where to mark your bend lines and how much material you need. But anyway, get it clamped up in your hydraulic press, and then boom, do this to it. And there you have it. That will, of course, make you a perfect 90-degree bend, or anything up to a 90-degree bend that you so desire. I don't know how thick a material you could get away with on this. It probably depends how big your V-blocks are, how strong your press is. It's probably not good for the V-blocks. I'm sure you could fuck them up if you did it all the time and used heavy enough material on there. And the big brother version of that is this. Happens to be nothing more than a set of old fork tubes, holes drilled in them so that I could adjust the gap in there. The way this works is, and I'll do this when I don't need to make a sharp bend in something like this. Maybe I'm bending a C-pan or something. But, you know, adjust your width between your rollers, and whatever your piece of pipe you're using for your radius, it could be as big or as small as you want, and lay your material in there. And basically you bend it the same way we just bent it on the V-blocks. And I've been using this method for larger pieces of material. Works good. So there you go. Three how to do it tips, and actually like 4, because 2 ways to bend metal on a hydraulic press. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about today is placement of the battery in the battery box. As I said, this block of wood is the same size as the battery this bike is going to get. There is enough room, and I really wanted to hide it up here behind the oil tank. The only trouble with that is, in order to get it out of the bike, you'd have to take the fender off, which means you'd probably have to take the wheel off, and you probably have to take the sissy bar off. because by putting it back in here, you're pretty much putting it in a cage and it's going to be captured. So where it's going to end up is going to be, let's see, where'd my other screw go? Where it's going to end up is going to be down here. In this area. Well, not in this area, but it's going to be down here exactly. I'm picking up the 2 mounting holes where the rubber pad that kept the fender from vibrating used to go on the stock bikes. We're going to put the battery box right there. It'll fit relatively nicely in there. I can get the screw in. Hey, bastard. Anyway, it fits up in there. You could even get it in and out. Get it in and out of there thanks to the bungee cord without even using any tools. Like I said, I would have liked it to have been hidden behind an oil tank, but you just can't get it in and out of the bike without taking half the bike apart. So it's going to be hanging right there. That's where it's going to end up. For today, that's it. I got a fender on order. I got some bar stock I got to go pick up to make a sissy bar out of. All the brackets are welded on for the exhaust pipes. Battery box is done. I got a new gas tank coming. I'm going to finalize the holes where that needs to be mounted in the next couple of days. This project is actually looking pretty good right now. So for now, I am out of here. Hey, thanks for watching. Please subscribe.